welcome back.
Welcome back to another episode of the
Hafu It.
I'm Kyoko.
I'm Sakura.
And this week we're talking about Harajuku. Let's get into it, Saku.
Let's get into it. So first of all, what is Harajuku?
Harajuku, I think when a lot of people are referring to Harajuku, they're referring more often than not just to the style
the aesthetic.
The aesthetic Harajuku.
Yes.
When I think it's interesting, I don't actually know like the full history, but Harajuku is it's a neighborhood in Tokyo.
Yes.
So I'm not sure how, maybe Sakura has some information on this, but I'm not sure yet how it links to the fashion.
So the breakdown for me was Harajuku is a district within, it's a smaller district within the Shibuya district. Shibuya, to my knowledge, is more of the fashion district and more upscale fashion. You can also live there. I've definitely looked at real estate in Shibuya, but it is insane. The cost to live in Shibuya is
in such small spaces,
out of control.
Too.
Yeah, it looks like it would be amazing, but I would not be able to. So Harajuku seems to be a smaller district within the Shibuya shopping district that became very, very iconic for a particular fashion style that came out of Harajuku. When you were in Japan, did you go to Harajuku?
We did, yeah. Oh my god, we couldn't not go to Harajuku.
You had to.
We had to go to Harajuku. So first of all, the transit station that's there is super kawaii.
The Harajuku station?
Yeah.
That's where you got off? Oh.
Yeah, well, it looks like an old train station, so it's not necessarily, like, it doesn't actually have kawaii characters necessarily, but it is still really, it's very lolita.
And was it super busy?
Oh, it was crazy
like insane.
Busy. Yeah. And when we went to Japan, it was at the very beginning, or I should say I'd say it was the beginning of COVID. So it was before it was necessarily declared an international pandemic.
Right.
But it was obviously still something that we were cautious of. So it wasn't as busy as I imagined that it would have been.
In its full glory.
Yes. Yeah. So when we were going to Harajuku, we actually stopped by Yoyogi Park.
Okay.
First, so we actually walked all the way down to Yoyogi Park first, and then walked up from Yoyogi Park, which is quite a walk, up to Meiji Jingu, which is actually just right outside of Harajuku Station.
Okay.
So it was kind of crossing up a couple things all at once. So that's really nice too. People often refer to, when they're referring to Harajuku, they're talking specifically about Takashita Street. When we're talking about that neighborhood, that's like that major like shopping street.
That's where all the stores are if you want to buy
photos,
Yeah,
all the photos that you see of when you type in Harajuku, like for Tokyo, it shows the entrance to Takashita Street.
Right.
And all the people that are there, because it's such a narrow street.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah.
Yeah. So would you say, like, as soon as you got off at the Harajuku station, were you seeing people who in the Western culture would identify as like Harajuku?
No, actually. No. It was a lot of like youth were there, but they were kind of, a lot of them just dressed normally. I don't think we saw actually a lot of people dressed in what you would imagine to be the Harajuku fashion, which was really interesting because obviously as a foreigner, that's kind of what you expect when you're going to show up to a touristy area like that.
Right.
That being said, outside of some of the businesses down Takashita Street, there are definitely...
No doubt.
There are definitely characters dressed up outside of some of the stores to let you know that you can go into those stores and try on Lolita dresses, maid outfits, and whatnot that they have down there.
And we're going to do that.
We're
100% going to do that.
That was the one thing. My traveling companion, when we were there, had no interest in going into those stores. So we just didn't. I didn't get to try on any Harajuku
She was like, no,
outfits.
ma'am.
Although I don't know, like there was a lot going on, and it was COVID, and it was kind of, we were walking like 30,000 steps every day. So
Yeah.
we were exhausted, and we were
Fair enough.
probably shopping way too much.
How could you not, though?
Yeah, we did quite a bit of shopping on Takashita Street. Obviously not at any of the Harajuku like fashion stores, but there are a lot of smaller fashion stores that are located on Takashita Street. Besides, like there's a Daiso there that also happens to sell
hell yeah.
some clothing.
A multi-story
Uniqlo.
Daiso.
Yeah, totally. There are some more like
A Uniqlo? Ah!
Yeah. There's some more independent and small businesses there that we ended up going into, quite a few of them. And actually, we realized that two of the stores that we went into were exactly the same business on the same street, but we had no idea. God. So we were like interested because we walked into the one store and we were like, oh my God, like we love everything in here.
Yeah.
Then we left, we bought something there, and then we walked into another store that looked cute. And it had like super cute things. We were like, oh my God, like cool. We like bought a couple more things there.
All the stores are just
and then
so
we just
cute.
checked the tag of the business, and it was the exact same
company.
So we were like, oh my God. That's actually where I got my bread dress from.
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, Kyoko's clothing that she got in Japan. So cute.
It's so easy, though.
It was instantaneously, like the second she set foot in Japan, it was just like head to toe realness.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Like I'm not one to say that I'm super fashionable as a person. Like
you
I don't,
are 100%.
Yeah, but not. I don't know. Like I don't know any of that. Like I don't specifically.
I don't know her.
Pair clothes. Yeah, we don't know who she is.
We don't know who she is.
I don't like go out of my way to pair clothing in a way that's like, oh yeah, like that is fashionable. Yeah. That is that.
So what you're saying is you're
fashion.
naturally fashionable.
She's
you don't even have to think about it.
Apparently, allegedly.
Cool.
But yeah, it wasn't as hard as I expected it to be. It was like, I think when we first landed in Japan, when we finally got off at the station where our Airbnb was, there was already, because the transit stations in Japan are also like, a lot of them have like stores in them. So we saw a clothing store and we were like, oh, we have to go there tomorrow.
Because I was going to say, like, even in Vancouver, we have like Jogo Juice and like there's like
no, it's like a mall.
Food stores within the it's just
it's like a full mall. Yeah, most of like at least the major ones.
I mean, it makes sense.
Yeah, so we were like, oh, we have to go there. But it's just the way that the clothes are. Like it's not hard to buy clothes and to get that aesthetic. Whereas we just don't have clothes like that here in North America. No. So it was it's interesting. But a little off topic, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, speaking about fashion, in terms of like our Western perception of Harajuku fashion, what we view as the main fashion style in Japan is called Decora. Mm. So Decora is like the most iconic internationally known fashion style. It dates back to the early thousands, and a lot of people say that it had its heyday kind of in the mid thousands and then kind of slowly started to like decline at the end of the thousands.
That's here in Western culture?
No, that's the particular style in Japan. Decora was definitely more popular in the thousands. Mm-hmm. But that's the main style that was kind of showcased in North America, as this is what Harajuku is.
Okay.
But Harajuku is obviously like all things, a full spectrum of different types of styles. I think a lot of people think of Japanese style as being very like cutesy and very cartoony.
It's the kawaii.
Exactly, where there's so many other genres outside of that. Mm-hmm. So one genre that I was very, very connected to was Lolita fashion. So Lolita fashion is Victorian style clothing. So you kind of want to look like a Victorian doll. And I think we've talked about this in other episodes where Japanese culture has a bit of a fascination with European,
right?
Especially older European fashion. So I was obsessed with a band called Malice Miser when I was growing up, which is a J-rock band. Malice Miser. They've gone through so many different styles, but when I found them, they were in their gothic Lolita style, and I was instantly obsessed. One of their members, especially Mana, was just full gothic Lolita, like head to toe. And I was like, okay, this is the
Yes.
one. Yeah. So the subgenres of Lolita are gothic Lolita, which is obviously a gothy version of Victorian dressing. There's classic, which is a more sophisticated traditional colors, traditional look. And then there's cute, which is like pastel-y and like very bright and very bubblegum. All of it is super cute, and you better get ready because I'm going to be full Lolita, like head to toe the second we step into Japan. It's going to be a lot. Get ready to have people stare at us.
Earlier today, Sakura was saying that we're going to have to find like a bidet for our studio apartment in Japan that like speaks in kawaii.
Like just,
And
yeah,
it's like,
the cutest. Yeah.
You aren't finished. Like,
Oh my God. Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Yay! Yeah.
So that's like one of my really, I think like one of the styles that I'm personally going to get into myself in terms of fashion when we move to Japan. But there's also like sailor style fashion. So like Sailor Moon, kind of
Right.
nautical looking. There is kind of like the darker side of it. There's Guro, which is like a horror based fashion style. There's Yami Kawaii, which is translated to sick cute. So that's kind of like medical, grotesque, and this might be slightly problematic, but like mental health almost. Like they're really into like kind of depression and stuff like that.
Well, I think like a lot of Japanese culture embraces stuff like that.
100%.
Anyway, like a lot of their pop culture. But
Yeah,
I
and
could
not
see it.
necessarily the style, but the mood is very like what we would consider in North America to be like emo.
Yeah.
Where you're just, you're into darker things and, real things. But that particular style, you would have like, you'd be very like bubblegummy, but you'd be wearing a surgical mask with like blood on it, and like your earrings would be like syringes and stuff like that. So I'm obviously very drawn to that. But outside of being like really bright and colorful or taking from other people's culture, there's also something called wa. I believe it has one other term, but I know it as wa, just WA. That's mixing traditional Japanese clothing with more like cartoony, bright and colorful fashion. So you'd be wearing a traditional kimono, but you would have like a really bright wig on with giant colorful platforms,
like neon dreadlocks.
100%, like really
bows.
crazy makeup, but yeah,
Right.
still in your traditional wear, which I think is so beautiful, and I'm definitely going to get into that too. But Decora is definitely the one that is the most common. Gwen Stefani's Harajuku girls,
Oh,
the
boy.
type of style
Here we
that
go, y'all.
the type of style that they showcased was Decora. It definitely, like, when I look back, it's definitely not how it's done in Japan. It was definitely like marketed a certain way for North America. And we will get into Gwen Stefani's Harajuku girls
God.
maybe a little bit later.
We're gonna get her started. Here we
Oh,
go.
yeah. So I think what like really drew me to Harajuku fashion was what a lot of people who are alternative in North America do, which is fighting against like traditions, fighting against like expectations that you're supposed to meet. Feeling like expressing yourself with your aesthetic is like an important, because like we all obviously have like our own style, but growing up in a place like Japan where you're in a school uniform for your entire youth, even when you're like outside of school, I think it leads you to not feeling like you're able to express yourself, especially if you're artistic and creative. So I love that younger Japanese people are fighting against like traditional norms and are doing it in such a beautiful, creative way. So yeah.
Yeah, I'm interested in that aspect, just in regards to like how Harajuku reached North American culture,
Right.
because we have and have had for a long time now variations of that form of expressionism and like I guess fashion rebellion-ish in different ways.
Right.
Like we still have a gothic style out here. There's the e-girl and the e-boy aesthetic that's emerged in the late
Yes.
2010s on like TikTok and social media.
A more refined emo
A
experience.
more refined emo experience. There was even like maybe like a year or two ago, Jenna Marbles released a video. I'm a big Jenna Marbles fan, by the way. Really sad that she's
oh my God.
not on the internet anymore.
We miss you, Jenna.
We miss her, but we respect her. Yeah, she released a video a couple years ago that was just her doing, it was like a Claire's makeover. And
right.
when she was going through it,
yes.
It reminded me of when I was a kid and going to Claire's and Ardeen and those stores that have all of the like the mesh gloves and the cute little like
wristbands,
blush, the glitter lip gloss and stuff like that.
Yeah, the hair accessories.
Yeah, and that in its own way is very Harajuku inspired.
Totally. Well, low key, I was watching a documentary not too long ago about the Harajuku history, and someone who is a very, very well known. I think they specifically do Yami Kawaii, but they have like millions of followers on Instagram. They took this person who was interviewing them to their favorite accessory store, and it was Claire's. It was Claire's. Exactly how it is in North America.
That was what all the kids were into when I was growing up.
Hell yeah, that's what I'm still into.
Yeah. Oh my God. It was like when you reach your like, but when I was growing up, it was called like the scene kid phase.
Right.
Where like you wore neon colors.
You headed to Hot Topic.
Yeah, a Hot Topic. Your like mesh gloves that were either like neon pink or black.
Oh,
you know,
my
you
God.
had the stickers that you'd put on your face.
Hell yeah.
And that's all coming back in the late 2010s with the e-girl and e-boy aesthetic. That's coming around, and I think that that's interesting.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Yeah.
I see, like, it's interesting because a lot of times in North America, especially because I used to be goth, I just noticed that goths maybe just didn't put in the amount of effort into their aesthetic that I would have liked. Not to be shady, but just the almost quality of like the makeup and the hair and the fashion that I see from kind of darker subgenres in Japan just seems to be a little bit more finessed than North American goths, where I don't know, I kind of almost always saw them as being kind of like rough around the edges, which is what, I mean, goth is supposed to be you rebelling against, you know, the norms. But for myself, because I have such an interest in fashion and makeup and beauty, I was always more drawn to darker styles out of East Asian communities.
Something to do with what you were talking about earlier with how the Harajuku style is very much like in rebellion of the traditional, and makeup itself in Japan, at least traditionally, is to a much like less pigmented levels.
Oh no, I'm gonna look like a full-on drag queen when we're in Japan.
So I think like part of that has to do with the fact that that level of makeup is something that would for sure get you stared at in Japan.
Right.
So the Harajuku style, the Lolita style, all of that embraces that to a great extent. Like the makeup is a large portion of that aesthetic.
Totally.
And I'm not saying that the makeup isn't a large portion of the Gothic aesthetic in the Western world, but it's not as uncommon to see people wearing makeup out here, like really strong makeup, especially not in the last like 10 to 15 years.
Right.
Perhaps like in different gender roles, yes.
Right.
Because I think like the Gothic mask people are like wear eyeliner, like deep eyeliner, maybe like a smoky eye,
totally
stuff like that. But again, like smoky eye versus like I don't know, like hard cut lines.
Well, and it's like the application that I notice.
Right.
Like it's more just you want to look kind of like spooky in North America, where you just kind of want to look a little bit on the darker side, where I see in Japan, it's done with like purpose and it's very tailored, even though it might be like a little rough around the edges. It's just done like in my view
It's
more
artistic.
artistically.
Yeah.
Like I used to get made fun of by goths because I was like too pretty.
Right. It was too perfect.
Yeah, like they almost expected me to look like I was coming out of like a mosh pit after like a
right.
couple of hours. Like I was just too, my makeup was too pretty and I was just too like aesthetically pleasing
Right.
that I wasn't like hardcore enough.
Your jeans
for
weren't like torn enough. Yeah.
you know, like I wasn't hardcore enough.
Yeah. Maybe that's too like I don't know if like grunge necessarily exists either in the same level as goth does in Asia or in Japan.
Yeah.
Whereas like grunge like kind of appears very differently here, and it comes from a different scene, like a similar scene to the goth scene.
Similar scene in rebelling against
Yeah.
like traditional norms and stuff like that.
Yeah. So perhaps like I don't know the history of all of that, but maybe it has to do with like because we're talking about how Harajuku is like the name of the neighborhood, but it's now the umbrella term for all these different fashion
styles.
categories and styles.
Totally.
Where here that might be similar to where it is where like maybe something started with the grunge and then it turned into goth, but because it came from grunge, it's a little more messy, it's a little less perfect.
Right.
Whereas at least you can kind of explain in Japanese culture there's gothic lolita, which comes from the Victorian era, and you know that everything about the Victorian era was being precise.
Totally.
And everything was on purpose and pristine.
Totally. Well, I think also, because we've talked about this a lot on our podcast, being mask presenting in Japan is a little bit different than being mask presenting in North America. So in North America, they feel comfortable enough to wear eyeliner, but if they do their eyeliner too well, then now it's going into like something else in the North American realm.
It's not the heteronormative.
It's not the
anymore.
heteronormative where in Japan, like, even if you're not like super into fashion, men wear makeup.
There's more room for androgyny, right?
Exactly. There's more room for people to express themselves with their aesthetic without the fear of it meaning something.
Yeah.
Or changing people's like perception of you.
Yeah, it's a form of
expressionism,
right? Like, I guess it's a form of expressionism everywhere. Like everybody has stuff like that. But yeah, it is really nice to kind of see that as just one extra step of rebellion in that respect to like what Harajuku means.
Totally.
To people who dress like that, who engage in that fashion.
Totally. And I'm in no way like trying to shade goths because I obviously love goths like so much. But yeah, just an observation.
Yeah.
In North America, especially because I was super into fashion, I noticed that a lot of fashion stores that I went into would always have this selection of books called Fruits. And I was always really drawn to it because of how colorful the aesthetic of the book is. But then actually looking into it, what it is a collection of photographs from a specific photographer who really focused on the Harajuku district and the different styles that were in the Harajuku district. So his name is, and I might be saying this wrong, but Soshi Aoki is the founder of the Fruits magazine, and the books that I have in my possession, I have 2 Fruits books, are basically just a collection of all his photographs from the magazines. And I've probably had these books since maybe like the early 2010s, and I just remember I used those specifically as style references. I never flipped through like fashion magazines or went on to like Tumblr or Pinterest or anything like that for any sort of fashion reference. I would just immediately go to my Fruits books and just flip through and be like, yeah, those shoes. Yeah, I'm going to try to find shoes like that here. Yeah, that's the moment. That's what I want to wear. But it's interesting because I got exposed to the many different types of fashion that is within Harajuku. So when I saw, when I like revisited Gwen Stefani's Harajuku girls and the way that she presented them, I started kind of noticing that she was trying to push a very specific narrative with her quote unquote Harajuku girls.
Here we are.
So yeah, I'm not quite sure how that all, I haven't really looked into it. I'm not quite sure how it all came about, but it didn't seem like the girls were able to have their own style within what would be considered the umbrella term for Harajuku. It seemed like they were being like specifically dressed up in a very certain way to be presented to the North American audience. And there's like many parts of that whole experience that for me personally as a Japanese Canadian is slightly cringy. And I definitely see arguments on both sides, like people saying it's cultural appropriation, people saying it's cultural appreciation. I just know when I saw it, I didn't really like it or was like super into it. We talked about her fragrances.
Yeah, so that's where I connect to this story because I see like the other side of it where like I grew up with Gwen being a fan of Gwen Stefani coming out of her band No Doubt and then going to making her own music and her own products.
Totally.
And part of that was her fragrance line. And they were like the
I
collectible
remember.
bottles with the Harajuku girls.
Yeah.
And I remember I'd like beg my mom to buy me
Which
like
one
a
did you
new
get?
bottle.
Love, Angel Music, or Baby?
Oh, like all of them.
Oh, you had all of them
at some point. Yeah, I
and
wanted
then
to collect
there was
all
a
of them.
Gwen one too, right?
I
think there was 5.
I don't think I had the Gwen one. I think I
You
had
were like,
all
no,
of
ma'am.
the other ones. Well,
Yeah.
no, I think like at that point, like we didn't have a lot of money growing up.
Yeah.
Thankfully, though, they were available at places in Canada like Shoppers Drug Mart, which was really great. So we had that, and I never wore perfume either. So it was just about getting the cap that had the Harajuku
because it looked like a
girls on
toy
it.
almost, right? Yeah.
And I like have always identified with like that cultural aspect of the Japanese in me.
Hell yeah.
Where I've just like been like, oh, like you see anything Japanese and you're like, hell yeah.
100%. 100%.
That's kind of how I viewed the whole like Gwen Stefani Harajuku thing. And like from what I've heard too, not specifically Gwen Stefani's Harajuku girls, like the actual girls that would follow her around, but just like Japanese people I've heard are very like welcoming of appropriation of their style. Maybe not in the traditional sense, but I've seen
definitely not in the traditional sense, but in like
more of like the
more modern,
the welcoming, of people being like, yeah, totally, this is how you wear it, like that type of yukata. And
well, we've talked about this before because Japan also takes from like European culture in terms of like the lolita style. I think there is like a healthy cultural exchange between like fashion senses.
Yeah, like I've only ever experienced from Japanese people the welcoming of you embracing parts of their culture. So I don't know. Like I don't know how that's viewed. I'd never known about the girls who used to follow Gwen Stefani around who were on a contract with her. But Saku has some stuff to say about that, yeah.
So in terms of just like looking into this situation, there were just kind of like certain things that just for me personally kind of triggered me. And all of this is not like verified. It's just what I've read from multiple different sources. Apparently her Harajuku girls were not allowed to speak English ever. Mm-hmm. So there was no chance for them to be interviewed while they were a part of Gwen Stefani's team. So they were basically just in the background. And if an interviewer ever asked them a question, Gwen Stefani would like politely tell them not to talk to her Harajuku girls, that they were meant to just kind of like be there and not be spoken to, which kind of rubbed me the wrong way. Because for me, cultural appreciation is showcasing something about the culture, but allowing space for people of that culture to be able to speak for themselves. And again, I haven't done a lot of research, so I'm not sure if in interviews she went through what Harajuku means, that it is a district in Japan the history behind it, the different like subgenres, and actually like showcase the cultural experience, or if she was just using it as an aesthetic essentially. And that's something that's argued back and forth.
Yeah.
And I love Gwen Stefani. I
Yeah.
love Gwen Stefani so much.
It's just a weird thing.
So it's just, yeah, it's just a weird thing. And it's just my own personal opinion. You were saying that in Japan, they're completely open to that. I think that just showcases the difference between Japanese North Americans and how we feel about cultural appropriation and appreciation versus people from Japan and how
I think
they
that
feel about
makes
that.
sense for us because there's a lot of like other parts of
There's a lot of history.
there's a lot of history. There's a lot
North
of
America.
parts of our culture here that has been stripped away from us. So it's I understand completely the need to be protective over what we do have and what we can claim as ours. Like 100% I understand that. And I'm not 100% at all on like Japan in general being like accepting of that, but that is what I've heard. Like they're more accepting than some other cultures of appropriation and appreciation of their culture, obviously done with respect. Probably.
Always respect.
Always with respect in the Japanese culture.
Yeah, because I noticed that with Avril Lavigne's song, and Avril Lavigne, I love Avril Lavigne so much.
Kawaii.
Yeah, her Hello Kitty song to me was nothing but cringy. Like I could not, the music video, the song, like I could not do it, but they absolutely loved it in Japan.
Well, and that being said,
it was like a number one in Japan.
Avril Lavigne is said to be like the original e-girl.
Yeah, she is. Avril, I love Avril so much.
Yeah, so bringing that like in a certain way, we've talked about this on episode 1 of the podcast where we were talking about Japanese people being accepting of foreigners in general,
right,
whether you're like mixed or not, but yeah, obviously someone with her level of popularity, it would probably make sense. But
she's so big in Japan.
She was so big in Japan.
And she still is. That's still one of her largest fan bases.
When we were in Japan, or at least I heard a couple places playing.
Oh my god.
Avril Lavigne.
You were like, yes,
yeah,
my Ontario queen.
No, I'm down.
Yes. Yeah, so I think that's interesting, and I am not obviously opposed to healthy, respectful cultural exchanges. So please don't take from this that I don't think that anyone should be able to enjoy things from Japanese culture.
I think there is something to be said about appropriation versus appreciation,
100%.
which you've kind of used intermittently throughout this episode. But yeah, appreciation comes from a respect and a knowledge of
the culture
that you're trying to partake in.
Totally, yeah. Yeah, and I feel like cultural appropriation is taking something from the culture without any sort of knowledge of what it is, what it means to the people. I always like revert back to people at Coachella wearing like indigenous hairdresses and stuff like that while they're like partying and listening to like EDM music. Yeah. I'm like, that for me doesn't show a certain level of respect to the culture. And if I asked you questions about it, you 100% would not know like what tribe it came from or like anything like that. But again, that's just my personal opinion.
Yeah, or there was that instance recently, there's like a group of white women in the States who are releasing a new version of Mahjong, but they've like changed the imagery on the Mahjong tiles to be like more cute and aesthetically pleasing, where there's a very long history and tradition with the game that they obviously didn't do the work beforehand before stepping in and colonizing the game.
Oh my god.
So there's been quite a stir recently in the social media world around that, which that is appropriation. That's not appreciation.
No.
Yeah.
Also, mixing of the East Asian cultures is not really appreciated by the communities. So if you took like, say, a kimono but had like either like like Chinese calligraphy on it, or just, you know, when it's just a hodgepodge of like all Asian cultures rolled into like this one thing. I'm just like, I don't know how I feel about that.
Unless it's from a business that is like from a standpoint of like celebrating mixed Asian heritage and stuff like that.
Sure. Oh, yeah. There's
like,
always going to
it's
be
all
exceptions.
in the marketing. It's all in like the
100%.
intention behind the product. But yeah, 100% I agree. I think that leads again back to how really cool it is that there are North American stems on the branch of the Harajuku fashion world.
Yeah.
Like when you read up about e-girls, I was reading up about it and the aesthetic, and I was surprised to not read more about its connection to Harajuku.
Right.
Or where it came from.
Yeah.
It was just like, yeah, e-girls and e-boy aesthetic. This is what it is.
Totally.
And, the part of it is to like look sick and cute, and that ties in again to one of the Harajuku subcategories that you're talking about with like looking sick.
Totally.
Whether that's physical or mentally ill or whatever it is. And I think it's really cool that there are stems of our culture that have been integrated very naturally over the last decade or so with the Harajuku culture, and that it all stems from this very small neighborhood,
little district.
Tokyo.
Yeah,
little Harajuku.
Yeah, and all of the people who were willing to put themselves out there and dress differently and express themselves creatively.
Yeah, I think in Vancouver back in like 2017, and I'm sad that they didn't make this a thing every year, and maybe I'm wrong, maybe it was every year, but I only saw evidence of one instance of it. There was like a Harajuku like street walk in Vancouver back in 2017. I was like, that's the
moment. Yeah,
why don't we have more stuff like that?
Totally.
Maybe, like I don't know if Powell Street Festival incorporates stuff that's more like Harajuku stuff. I guess it depends, like they probably curate more to the interest of the Japanese Canadian community, and like what the interests are there.
Totally.
And I think a big focus for us is more like reclaiming the culture that
lost.
has been
what's been taken from us.
Instead of trying to delve into that. So there's priorities there. So it's usually more traditional stuff that you see around Japanese Canadian artists. But like clothing places that we've already talked about before, like Blim in downtown Vancouver, that make like more rave type of clothing, and they make like haoris out of recycled materials.
Right.
Is really cool and a modern take on a Japanese tradition, but it is run by Japanese Japanese Canadians, which is another really cool thing. I love that. So I like to see the marriage of all of those cultures.
Totally. Yeah, it's interesting. In North America, I almost see more non-Japanese people dressing with the kind of Harajuku aesthetic than I see like like non-Japanese people. So one person who's like very current right now is Ash Nico.
I don't know who.
So Ash Nico is an electronic recording artist. They rap and stuff like that. Their song is Stupid Boy.
Okay. I don't know.
Stupid boy, think that I need you.
Oh my God.
Stupid boy, think that I need you.
Yeah. Okay.
So if you look at her style is very Japanese influenced, like heavily Japanese influenced,
right,
to the point that she'll have like anime characters like printed on her clothing. Mm-hmm. She has bright blue wig, like the pigtails. It's very, very Japanese. In no way, shape, or form do I feel like anything that she's doing is cultural appropriation, mm-hmm, because she's doing it with a level of respect and isn't doing it as a joke and isn't wearing it as a costume.
Right.
So that I'm totally, and I think that's probably like a big point of cultural appropriation is you're wearing it as a costume.
I think the term costume is really like
triggering.
It's really like, it's really worthwhile bringing that up. It's definitely a big contribution to the differences between appropriation and appreciation.
Like dressing up as a geisha for Halloween to go to a costume party, like
when you're not
our kimonos
of that culture
are not it's not a costume. It's not a costume. Yeah, these are not caricatures. These are actual people. This is a part of our actual history. Yeah.
No, I love that.
It's getting heated in here.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair. We're Japanese Canadians. We can, We're of the mixed
We're
sector.
allowed to feel how we feel.
We're allowed to feel how we feel.
Oh, how we feel. But yeah, like I don't feel like Ashiniko is doing anything that is remotely cultural appropriation. So you can definitely enjoy aspects of Japanese fashion and Japanese culture, but not using it as a trend or a costume.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think part of the Harajuku culture that I don't hear enough about is that Harajuku as a fashion style also applies to food.
Oh, tell me about it.
Yeah, so
Let's get into
being
it.
in Harajuku, I think like 50% of the stores that are on Takashita Street are food or like some kind of like
It keeps
bubble
getting
tea.
better and better for me.
Yeah, it's just I think it's just contributing to maybe it's the Decora subgenre of Harajuku where just everything is kawaii.
Yeah.
Maybe that's just a thing. Maybe the style kawaii just is a whole subgenre itself under Harajuku.
Totally.
But that for sure applies under the section of food. When
my
you
God, I
go to
love that.
Harajuku, you know that's the place you're gonna find the like cat-shaped buns. Like it's the place where you're gonna get like the bubble tea that has like a rainbow layers or some shit. Like
Everything has a face on it.
yeah, everything has a face. Everything has a face on it.
I live.
We didn't like eat a lot of those things, or that's where like the cheese sticks are that like have like you pull it out and it's the image that shows that the cheese is like rainbow on the inside. It doesn't really look like that, but
we love.
but we love, yeah, and that's how it's advertised.
I love that.
So any kind of like kawaii food that you kind of see around too, that also, and maybe I'm being historically incorrect here, but that also like is part of the Harajuku culture. That's part of that neighborhood.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's interesting because in the West, we only get exposed to certain aspects of Japanese culture. And I think a lot of people view all Japanese people to be kawaii and to be like cute and to be like colorful and cartoony when it's literally the exact opposite.
Yeah. Well, for example, like when we went to Japan, something that I really wanted to do was to go to a place called Kawaii Monster Cafe.
Oh, hell yeah.
And it's like nearby to Harajuku. It's not necessarily in like the main district. But I like wanted to go because that's something that I wanted to see, and because that is also something that I perceived growing up as a mixed race Japanese person, because all these people are asking you if you know about so and so or this anime or that cartoon,
totally,
or this aesthetic or that aesthetic.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to go to a kawaii monster cafe.
Yeah, you did, and you
where
did.
the food is like neon green and the
rice
neon.
You got me.
The rice was like blue,
you got me.
And the walls were glow in the dark.
Hell. Can we just go to Japan now?
Yeah, we can go now.
Can we just go now?
Right? Yeah,
oh my
COVID's
God.
not a
Is the
thing anymore.
pandemic over yet?
You would love it. But yeah, because like mid-dinner or mid-meal pretty much, like they put on a performance too, like up on a stage. And you're sitting in these teacups.
And
they like go up on stage and perform, and they're wearing like, they have those wigs that are like pink dreadlocks, and they're wearing bows, and they're like striped stockings. Very like ragdoll-esque. Or like, and like fur cuffs and stuff like that, because it's Monster Cafe. And in that cafe there are like a couple different like themed rooms, I think, for different levels of popularity, but again, we were going in the middle of COVID, so it wasn't very popular, it wasn't very busy at the time, but that's pretty much like what I pictured when I think of like Harajuku and stuff like that.
They served you the realness
from growing up here in North America, and that's what I went to get.
Totally.
In my experience there.
Yes.
And it was everything and more.
I'm so excited. Yeah, it's going to be so interesting for me when I go, because you've already been to Japan, to see how my North American perception of Japan is going to compare to like what Japan is actually like.
Yeah.
But like you said, I'm sure I will find little pockets of like what I have perceived. to be there, and we're 100% going to that cafe.
Yeah. Well, you guys know already that we like scream a lot, right? We're like,
Do we?
Oh, no.
I don't.
Just kidding.
I don't laugh. I literally scream.
Yeah, we only scream.
And I apologize.
But pretty much like when I was in Japan, anytime I saw something that was like literally as small as like a pothole
oh my God,
that had
you would
like
scream.
a little design on it that was so Asian, I was like, because that's just what it is, right? That's like something that you
it's
almost
so
like perceive to be fictional,
right?
Including like things that are very Harajuku.
Yeah.
Like what I pictured in my head about going to the Harajuku neighborhood and what I saw were very different.
Totally.
Which it was fine. It wasn't disappointing. It was just different. And there were still the stores that had the Lolita dresses in it that was really like awesome.
Yes.
But it wasn't all that. It wasn't all kawaii. It wasn't all like
totally
people dressed in those outfits and that fashion.
Exactly. Yeah.
But that is like what you expect.
You expect the entire street and every single person on that street to fit your image of like what it
because that's at least what the Canadian perspective is on the term
totally
Harajuku.
I think that's just the North American perspective of it, but that's not the truth.
You have any expectations or wants on like a checklist for when we finally go down there? You gonna try on some Lolita dresses?
Well, yeah, 100%, because that's what my style is gonna be when we're in Japan.
Oh my God,
it's gonna be intense.
We're not living in Tokyo.
I think we're not, but we'll make trips.
Oh my God,
we'll make trips, and obviously there are people outside of Tokyo who still dress in different subgenres of what would be conceived as Harajuku. But yeah, like definitely gothic Lolita, Yumi kawaii, basically anything like gothy and creepy, I will definitely be buying. I'm sure the majority of the money that I'll be spending in Japan will be on clothing. I plan on going with like almost no clothing, like an empty suitcase.
I almost wish that when we had gone to Japan, we hadn't brought a lot of clothing.
Right.
Because we literally had to ship back a box of just things, and a lot of it was just clothes because we bought so many new things when we were there. And it was all like decently priced.
Exactly, and that's what's going to get me.
Yeah, and maybe that's because we're from Vancouver and everything's
so expensive
is like
here.
Expensive enough. So it was like pretty much on par, if not like slightly cheaper.
Right.
So yeah, it's brilliant. I'd 100% recommend if you're going to Japan and you're going to be in Tokyo.
Yes.
Don't bring a bunch of clothing.
Right.
Unless you have no intention of partaking in like any of the like fashion trends in Japan, which is totally cool too.
Right.
But it's hard not to when you're down there. It's all just so cool, and it's like so that aesthetic that you always wanted to have growing up, and you're like, look at all these really fashionable Japanese people here, and you're like, oh my God, I've always wanted to dress like that.
Yeah.
You go into any store over there and it's just
they got
all of those like comfortable, oversized like clothing. So,
and there's actual like salons in the Harajuku district where you can go and they will just straight up dress you from head to toe.
They will.
So don't think that I'm not going to do that to you. I'm 100% going to head to toe you. And you're just going to have to deal.
Oh, like I thought you meant like, don't think that I'm not going to do it and then walk around with you. Like you intend on like bringing me into one of those places.
And having them
do it
head to toe Harajuku you AF.
Harajuku me.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Because I'm already going to be dressed. I'm already going to be in the gig.
Oh,
I want you to get into the gig.
I'll do it if it's just for a photo shoot.
Yeah.
Like I won't do it and then walk around.
Oh my God.
See, I'm more of like an Osaka girl.
You're saying that now, but I just don't know.
Fuck. No, I'm more of an Osaka fashion girl. Yeah. You know, like that, the leather jacket, the plaid.
Hell yeah.
Like, that's where I'm going to go. So we're going to be the best of both of the top fashion worlds in Japan.
Yeah. Yeah. And even if we're living like on the other side of Japan from Tokyo, we still have to just like a shopping day. We just have to train there. It's going to be a shopping
2 years.
Yeah, like, we just need to, exactly.
It's going to be a shopping like whole time that we live in Japan, like every day.
Every day.
It was really hard to control ourselves from
it's just gonna be food
too
and
much
clothes.
Money. We spent the majority of our money in Japan on just clothing.
Yeah.
Which seems ridiculous. But I guess
mean-
neither of us were like big into like miniatures and stuff like that. I got a few for myself.
I'm going to get all up in that.
God, our entire apartment.
It's going to be rough.
We joke all the time about how Sakura's side of our apartment when we move to Japan is going to be like fully like neon lights and colors and
Lots
like
of
Funko
figurines.
Pops.
Yeah,
and,
exactly.
and my side's going to be like more modern, like contemporary.
Muji, like just...
Muji.
Plain wood,
More Muji.
stationary,
100%.
like clean, minimalist. Mine's going to look like a 12-year-old vomited everywhere.
I mean, like Hannah Montana said, you get the best of both worlds.
Oh my God. We balance each other.
We balance each other.
And
that's what fashion is all about.
That's what fashion is all about.
Freedom of expression.
Oh my God.
Harajuku.
Oh my God.
Harajuku.
Ah!
Well, that's been a week on talking about Harajuku.
Yeah, I hope you
guys.
enjoyed.
Yeah, thank you all for tuning in again on another episode of the Hafu It.
Yeah.
We hope you stay tuned for next week. Again, I'm Kyoko, and you can find me on all of my socials as This is Kyoko.
And I'm Sakura, and you can find me on all of my socials at saku.miki.
And if you just want to follow along with podcast-related things, quotes, little snippets, just follow us along on Instagram as Hafu It. Just Hafu It.
Definitely. And if you want us to start like kind of, seeing you, start using our hashtags. We list different hashtags. Start using it, and every once in a while we'll just kind of check up on the hashtag and see who's been using it, because we want to see who's listening to us. We want to see your beautiful faces.
Yeah, and if any of you have any cool like Harajuku outfits,
I would live.
Us.
Please send them to me.
Tag us.
Send them to me.
Yeah, use our hashtag
today.
DM. Yeah, slide into our DMs.
Slide into our DMs. Oh my God, I live.
Okay, well, thanks again, everybody. We'll talk to you next week.
Talk to you next week.